just enjoy the harp for now. Experience and story to tell you about our relationship with the earth. So, hi everybody, Philip Wade here from the Universal Studio in North Yorkshire, and I'm just going to take these headphones off. So this story and experience I'm about to share with you, I think has probably only been heard by a very, very tiny number of people, myself, my wife, and probably one or two other people, and I think I may have shared it on a blog a few years ago that I was part of as well. But yeah, it was prompted by somebody asking, a Facebook friend asking for people to share experiences of their relationship with the earth and connection with it and what it kind of meant to them. And I was reminded overnight of this experience. And at the time, which was probably 12, 13 years or so ago now, I was living in a small North Yorkshire village in England called Thornton Stewart. I'd not long moved there, and it was a fairly typical, very small Dales village. And obviously in those Dales villages, as many of you who live in England will know, that there is very little or no street lighting. And I'd actually been across to Manchester for the day, it was Easter Sunday, to visit my family, and I'd come back and it was a clear, completely clear sky, and it was freezing cold outside. And after I'd arrived back home, I was sat in the small little office that I had there at the house there, working on the computer, browsing, when suddenly, and really quite surprisingly, there was a truly compelling urge to go outside that was arising up in me. Just felt this really strong sense that I needed to go outside. And mine started to kick in, and thought, why on earth? It's freezing out there. It's late at night. Must have been about 10 o'clock at night. Why on earth would you want to go outside? But anyway, the urge came again, and I relented, put on my coat, and went outside. And as I got outside onto the street, I looked, or felt compelled perhaps, to look immediately and directly above the house, which was on a dark side lane in the village. And the sky was absolutely clear apart from one thing, and directly above the house was a single cloud. Now this cloud, you might think, well, that's unremarkable, but actually this was nothing unremarkable about this cloud. It was in the shape of a figure, or the number 2. It didn't look just a bit like a 2. It was a perfectly shaped 2, as if you had drawn it on some computer graphic screen. It was perfectly shaped, the edges were completely smooth. There was nothing about it that it would say to you that was a cloud, except that it was a cloud, and it was in the perfect shape of a 2. And I was absolutely stunned by this, how a cloud could look so perfectly like this shape. And I was looking at it, and it was in an easterly direction, as I recall, from the direction the house was orientated, but right above the house. And I was looking at this thinking, what on earth is going on here? And I was so drawn to it and so compelled by this single cloud in an otherwise cloudless sky. There was a little walk that you could do that would take about 10 minutes. So I decided to do this walk because there was like a circle or a triangle around the house so that I could look at this cloud from many different angles. So I'm walking along, it's absolutely pitch black, it's a very quiet Dales village, there's nobody else about, there's no cars on the road. And as I'm walking round, watching where I'm going, but also looking up regularly to look at this cloud, and I didn't have a camera, so I can't show you an image. At some point in that process, in this 10-minute walk, I think it was as I turned right to go down the main lane which joins the village, the cloud started to change shape. There wasn't a breeze. There might have been at that level, but there wasn't at ground level a breeze. And it didn't break up as I expected it to do. No, it didn't do that. It actually, by some miraculous process, this cloud started to change shape and form. And it did this really quite slowly as the sort of two shape unfolded. And over a process of some minutes, this two became a perfect zero. The number 0. And again, there was no rough edges to this 0. It was perfectly smooth, a perfect 0 in every way, with the hole in the middle. And I watched this happening at, probably 10 o'clock at night in the middle of the countryside, wandering around thinking, what on earth is this? And I'd, as I say, this compelling urge to go outside and clearly to see this spectacle. And I continued to wander around, and it continued to change, as I say, to be there as this perfect 0. And I was absolutely stunned and amazed by this. And eventually it was so cold, and I got back to the house probably 10-15 minutes later, and decided it was time to go back inside, and actually emailed a friend of mine in the United States to get her reaction. This was somebody who was very clairvoyant, and I emailed her straight away to explain this experience to her, and she came back with some insight. And I couldn't at that time fully grasp the meaning of the experience, and it wasn't until really probably 6-7 years later that the indication, this sign, what this was pointing to became clear to me as the nature of the true self was realised, and that was back in 2014. And I eventually realised that what actually was being shown here was that the two represented the duality consciousness that we most commonly experience. The duality is based on opposites, love and fear, hot and cold, and so forth. And we're so focused on this duality consciousness, and that we think that we're separate from the earth, the universe, and everything, that we suffer as a result of this mistaken belief. And as the self had been realised in 2014, I saw, or it was seen would be more accurately, that we are in fact the universe, infinite awareness or infinite consciousness or infinite silence. And that is often referred to in spirituality as the no thing or nothing. And this sign that had been shown 6-7 years earlier on Easter Sunday, interestingly, and I'd been brought up a Catholic, by the way, so that was a significant time in my upbringing, was actually showing me the calling in a very, very physical way that I'd been feeling inside for probably at that time a couple of years or so. It had actually been there since childhood, but it had been suppressed, like in many people, and by a very, very busy working life. And I'd really already made inside by that time the decision that at some point, and it ended up being a year or so later, to leave behind a very successful career where I'd become a director of the business, right from the grassroots up to director level, having turned a business around and left it in a very good shape, and the company was very happy about it, the client was very happy. That decision had already been made inside, but it just hadn't been finalised. And here was this sign coming from the atmosphere, so to speak, in the earth, showing me that I eventually was to realise fully what it meant, that this was about life on earth. The human experience is about moving from that experience of duality consciousness to the realisation that we are in fact one with the universe, the earth, and so forth, and that these bodies that we have are like facets of a diamond, but we are in fact the whole diamond. The facet is not separate from the diamond. And it was most interesting that this was up there in the Earth's atmosphere, because whilst we might think that the Earth is something that we inhabit, we are actually also in this symbiotic relationship with the Earth and the universe, one with it. And when you are open to the awareness of that which you really are, these signs, these symbols, these miracles of consciousness are everywhere to be seen. I had not asked for this. I had no intention of going out that night on a freezing cold Easter Sunday, having been out all day. The last thing I wanted to do was to go outside again, and yet there was this compelling calling from inside to go and see this miracle unfold. These signs, my friends, these callings may show up in the strangest of ways, and this is just one story I could share with you about things that I've seen in natural phenomena that are relating to our relationship with the earth. You see, the earth reflects and responds to our consciousness in beautiful ways, but also in challenging ways. For those of you who've seen the film Avatar, there's actually some deep truth in the bit where, I forget the main character's name now, goes and connects with the Tree of Souls, where the tail thing that he sticks into that tree with all the light. That was a very physical way of showing our connection in that film Avatar, and actually there's some very profound pointings in that film, but actually that connection, that intimate energetic connection with the earth, the universe, the stars, is there in us all. And the only reason, as I say, I've chosen to share this story today was having seen that request from somebody to talk about our experiences with the earth and our relationship with it. There was suddenly this compelling urge overnight to say, it's now time to sort of share this. So there you go. This single cloud that was shaped in the space of a perfect two, right above my house, turned into this zero-shaped cloud, and it was a pointing to the process that was happening within. So that's the story I wanted to share with you. And that kind of miracle, that kind of sign is there for us all inside. It may not be in quite as spectacular a way as that always, but these signs are there, and they're all encouraging you to look within, to be open to the miracle of life, and realize that you are one with life, and that you are life eternal. So I hope that's been of some interest and use to you. I'm going to sign off now and wish you all a pleasant evening, afternoon or morning, wherever you are. Namaste. Namaste. Namaste.